Welcome.
Welcome, everybody. We are getting ready to get started with our community meeting, which is a community Black and Brown coalition here at the Doc Bookshop. I am honored to be here with some great community advocates and activists, and so um, we're gonna wait and watch while everybody just gather in and get your
Oh,
families
and let me
involved
check
because
to
there
make
is a
sure.
lot going on in our community, the Dallas Fort Worth and beyond. So we're going to cover a lot of territory. We haven't done a community meeting in the past month. Summer, we've been kind of been, just gathering information in our thoughts, and we really took a step back in terms of mobilizing, but it is very critical that we connect to our community. And so we're here at the Doc Bookshop with quite a few community participants, just kind of get a feel on some of the things that are going on in our community. So I'm here with Alex. Alex I call him Alex
Well, you know what? Let us
and,
each say our name.
and
I'm Donna Craddock, co-owner of the Doc Bookshop.
Danya Craddock, co-owner of the Doc Bookshop.
Alex Montalvo, community organizer here in Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay, welcome everyone.
Before we jump into everything, I just want to, while everybody's still gathering and YouTube and Facebook sending out notifications, let's just go ahead and just each of us go ahead and talk about how our summer's been going. Donna, I'll go ahead and start with you in terms of how your summer's been going while people are gathering.
Okay. Well, again, welcome everyone. I'm excited to be here, and you know, it's just been a busy summer for us. We've been going. We really have been going. And truth be told, I need a vacation. But we got a lot coming up. We've done a lot this summer. June, I consider for us, summer is really May, June, July, and August. It's summer for us. And so May, June, we've been really busy with a lot of the events. We had some great authors come through. We had Juneteenth. And July, we're dealing with, July is kind of more of a rest month for us, but it hasn't been a rest month. We've been having some great authors as well. We just had Omar Tyree come to the Doc Bookshop a couple of weeks ago. He was great. And we got some local authors coming up this weekend. And this Saturday, we're going to talk about the African, we're going to have a round table about African. It's going to be an African and African diaspora roundtable, and basically it's just like a global roundtable. We're bringing in different descendants of the African continent. We got some folks coming from London. We got some coming from Kenya, Congo, Haiti, Jamaica, and of course United States. I think one's coming from Belize. So we're going to have a few folks in the house, and we're just going to be just sharing our experiences, our literary experiences, as well as our life experiences, and just starting that conversation. So if you're available on Saturday from 3 to 5, stop by for that conversation. But prior to that conversation, we're going to have an author here. I want to say Michelle O'Neill, but I think she go by DM. Yeah, DM O'Neill. That's her pen name. DM O'Neill. She'll be here at 1:00, and definitely come check her out. She's a fiction author. She wrote a couple books called Shattered and Shambles, and she will be in the house. She's local. We definitely want to support our local authors. And then that night we have. So this Saturday is really busy because this Saturday we also have at 8:00 we got Mike Gwynn. He's doing a spoken word Olympics live.
So that is right before the Olympics start.
Yeah. So if you're available, check out our socials. We're gonna make sure this is on our website, and Sunday is just as busy. We got a wonderful book club, the DFW No Name Book Club. Alex, you should consider, if you're not doing anything Sunday, you might enjoy this book club. They call themselves the DFW No Name Book Club.
What time is the book club?
It's at 1:00.
Ooh, that's kind of perfect.
And they're talking about again, they're dealing kind of with the African diaspora too, and they're dealing with Rasta and resistance, and how to say Babylon. I need to go get that book. We actually have both those books in store. I'm gonna go grab them and show you all. And then following that, we have another author, Donna Gasaway Mitchell. She'll be here talking about her book, God's Glory.
So basically, we got a lot coming up. and
We got a
some-
lot coming up. Yeah, and so definitely, but I want to mention this before we go any further. I do want to mention the Slocum Massacre discussion. That's going. Well, Alex, if you can't make it Sunday, try to make it Monday. Monday at 7, we're going to have an in-person conversation about the Slocum Massacre that occurred, because this is the 114th anniversary, and the author of the book, the Slocum Massacre, he will be here to talk about it, ERBOs, and so that should be very interesting.
And if you have a copy
Conversation.
of the Fort Worth Weekly, you will find him on the cover of the Fort Worth Weekly. So
Yeah.
thanks a lot, Donna. Donna has been doing an awesome job around the Doc Bookshop. As we know, this summer my foot has been injured, so I haven't even been able to do a lot of the walking that I try to do. So Donna has been doing an amazing job of just kind of navigating in the community and doing a lot of the different trade shows. So she's, kudos to all the stuff that you've been able to
I've
do.
been trying to hold it down. It's been quite interesting. I done dropped a few balls.
That's okay.
So,
we
but I've been trying to hold
we
it
got
down.
a lot going on, and
It's a lot.
you-
And-
we're doing just getting ready for the Trinity River, so it's a lot going on. So Alex, your summer?
Summer has been busy. Summer's been busy. I think it's funny that your summer really kicks off in March.
May.
I'm sorry, May. For me, that makes me think of when the Hollywood blockbuster season kind of starts. That's when the Doc Bookshop blockbuster season starts.
Oh, really?
So-
Okay.
So major event after major event,
Oh.
starting from May all the way to the end of summer.
Yeah. It's-
And my encouragement to everyone is that find multiple ways to support the Doc Bookshop by following them on social media, liking and commenting on their content, interacting with their live feeds, coming to the Doc Bookshop for events, ordering any kind of books or content that you're wanting through their website or coming in store to purchase it. This is an amazing place that all of us really can do so much to support and make sure that it's a thriving environment and cultural epicenter that we absolutely need in Fort Worth. And we have the great opportunity to be able to support it here. So anything that you can do in any of those ways will make a huge difference. So if you can't be here physically, show up online, like programming like this, show up on social media and order online. I love ordering online from the Doc.
and we
because it's so
appreciate
easy.
you.
It's so easy. And
Yes, thank
the
you.
books
for
come in and you can have them delivered directly to your house, or you can have them delivered to the Doc Bookshop. I like them being delivered to the bookshop because it gives me another reason to come here
that.
and hang out with Donna and Danya and just the community members that are here. So yeah, do everything you can to support the Doc Bookshop. It's an amazing community resource that we have, and it's just awesome that y'all are here.
Well, we appreciate you, brother. Thank you for those kind words. If you are, please like, subscribe, share this episode, or live, whatever you want to call it. Please subscribe to our YouTube. We've been trying to work on that as far as being more present on YouTube. So definitely, if you're on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And well, I guess we could get into it.
Yes, there's a lot going on. Let's just
Well,
jump
shout
on.
out. I think we need to. Oh, we got some interaction. Shout out to Lakbara.
I think he's in Ohio.
It's good to see you. Well, we don't see you, but it's good to connect with you, my brother. Hope all is well with you.
Let me make sure
Yeah,
I follow him, because he's gonna probably give me some words to say.
Yeah.
Let me make sure I got
And,
him
let me,
turned.
and also, I need to check our other feed right quick. Give me 1 minute. But yeah, definitely subscribe to our channel and our socials. We're just trying to.
So while Donald's doing that, I do want to, before we jump into conversation, because we're going to have a lot to talk about, I do want to encourage everybody to, Kamala Harris is, I guess we're going to go into that later, so I won't touch on that right now.
Well, I mean, we got several stuff. Let's go ahead and get started with our conversation because it's a lot happening in the world, and I really don't know where to begin. To be honest, I don't even know where to begin. But I let's just be in prayer for Sonya Massey's family, and her friends because that is tragic, and another police brutality case. It's when I heard of that story, a book came to mind, and not surprising because we're booksellers. But the book Black Fatigue came to mind because it's like here we go again. It's exhausting, and it's like when do the bully get tired of bullying? It's I don't know. I just feel that the African American race, Black folk, we are the most bullied people, and it's just like, and we do stand up. Now, don't trip. We stand up, but it just get tiring after a while. You'd be like, not again.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just, it was just hard to hear that, and then the whole situation was just odd to me.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very odd situation, like she's he comes to the door and she says, please don't hurt me. That it's just odd, but people do sense danger. I just don't know how he got past the door. I guess as an officer, it's just crazy.
I like the word she uses, brutality, but we got to keep that in context with violence. So it was the brutality.
Actually, it was murder. It's not even brutality. It was murder,
violence, and murder. So we have to keep all of those, and those are harsh words, but those are realities that we have to contend with because the brutality part of it, I equate that to just the energy of walking into the door, and you've already made, just looking at some of the video cams and looking at his energy and his stance, that was a telltale sign of he didn't have any good intentions when he walked in the door. We say all those nonverbal cues mean something. And, so there's something that's happened within his training, or I won't even put just his training, his connections that has caused him to walk into this woman's house who's asking for help and for it to turn against her. So we have to keep these things, this concept into perspective, and the community can't afford to take their foot off the pedal, because we've seen this happen in 2019 with Tatiana Jefferson, but look at all the cases that happened in between. And it's happening all over the country. And so we have to continue to keep these dots connected and keep pushing the pulse on understanding, professionalism. We have to root out evil wherever it is, and some of those things take place in the training process. Would you agree, Wendy?
Yeah, I mean, it's we're seeing violence and murders happening from various law enforcement, and this story in Springfield, Illinois, is similar to stories we've had here in Fort Worth, right? And it's not only when people call the police or the police visit your home, but it's also the people who are in our Tarrant County jails.
Yeah, right.
And right now there are 2 folks who used to work for the jail that are indicted for murder against Anthony Johnson Jr., who's one of the most recent this year to have died in county jail. But it wasn't just that he died; he was murdered, and these 2 are indicted with murder. The autopsy ruled it as a homicide. But then we've had other people die in this Tarrant County jails, and it's not just, a lot of people think, oh, well, they're in jail. A lot of people can be very callous about that. But these are community members that have not been to court, have not been officially charged or convicted with anything. They're being held in jail. And a lot of times it has to do with mental illness.
Right.
And so we're seeing failures across the board when it comes to law enforcement protecting and serving our communities. And so I think, like you're saying, Danya, we need to make sure that we're always aware of what's happening. For folks who want to support Sonia Massey, there's a vigil in Dallas tomorrow with the Grassy Knoll on 411 Elm Street, Dallas, 7 p.m. Friday, July 26th. They'll be honoring the life of Sonia Massey, who was 36-year-old Black woman who was murdered by a sheriff deputy in Springfield, Illinois. And so that's an opportunity locally that we can show solidarity. But in Tarrant County, we've had a number of issues. You know, I'll be honest, I was driving here to the Doc Bookshop from West Fort Worth, and a cop car swerved on Camp Bowie, took up 2 of the lanes, got out, stopped traffic, and walked up to a Black man and started talking to detain him. Nobody knows what's going on. I'm stopped in traffic. So many other people are stopping in traffic. And you can see how people started pulling out their phones to record what is going on. After several minutes, you know, I had to depart, and it looked like things were starting to dissipate. But that's something that is in front of us happening
Right.
every day, unfortunately, for folks. And so we have to figure out as a community how to come together, use our power collectively to change the things that are happening like this. And that happens with who's representing us during, you know, who we elect, who we vote for. It has to do with holding folks accountable who are in leadership, and so much more. And so we
And
want to make sure people are plugged in.
You know, it's societal pressures too.
Mhm.
Societal pressures on both sides. You know, we don't know what Sonia was going through or what she was experiencing, or, you know, somebody's outside her door. But those pressures in society, we're trying to do bills, police officers trying to make bills, everybody's trying to pay bills. There's the massive amount of inflation going on. So there's so many economic problems that it's driving people, you know, crazy. And you can't think, you know, we're in a time where you got to have a phone. So that's another bill on top of your hierarchy of needs, which is food, clothing, and shelter. And so all these things create disturbances within the community.
And we're going to talk about Project 2025 here a little bit later on this broadcast.
Project Confirm.
And that's going to talk a lot about how, you know, people have been in law enforcement, gotten into law enforcement, specifically because of this radical extremist movement towards an authoritarian government. And so there are folks in our law enforcement who have been there, who are new to there, who support this very extreme viewpoint of government and this regime that is wanting to be implemented. And we're seeing some of that play out with how they are dealing with citizens on the day-to-day.
Mm-hmm.
And so definitely there may be some aspects of pressure, but there also are people who are aligning with a very extreme view of what they want America to be. And our people in the Black and brown communities are suffering from that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah.
And everybody hurts on both sides of the fence, because what about the gentleman who's I think it was his son was murdered, and he went in, the cop that murdered his son, he ended up murdering his daughter. So everybody hurts on both sides, you know, and that's unusual for that to happen, but that's a reality of people that are getting fed up with the system of how things are going, and they're not going to continue. They're not going to turn a blind eye to this. They're not going to stop and say, you know, it's going to be an eye for eye. So we have to. Everybody's going to be impacted. So it behooves us to say, how do we stop it? How do we get to enough is enough? Because everybody, at the end of the day, is impacted.
And we do have a special guest who is available to join us if we want to add them to the stage on the digital stage. We have
our friend. Hi, Danita.
Hi, ladies. Hi, Alex.
Yeah,
I was about to say she's going to single me out, or if I'm just one of the ladies today, which I'm happy to.
You get it.
It's something that wouldn't be new. Growing up with two sisters and then raising a household of daughters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you can handle the feminine energy.
But Danita, we're talking about Sonia Massey and the tragedy, another tragedy that's happened. And I know you've been talking to community members about what's going on. Would love to get your perspective on, what you've been hearing from community, but also what we need to do, as Danya said, because enough is enough.
So my father was in law enforcement for 42 years. And in that 42 years, he never pulled his weapon.
Wow.
So there is a possibility of good policing. We just have to have good people in those places. It's possible. However, Sonia Massey's murder should have never happened because he never should have been allowed to have that job. He had already been resigned from 5 other law enforcement. However, because of his proximity to the chief deputy by relation of his wife, and that's her father, he was able to get this job. My second issue with him being on the job is that he has stage 4 cancer with a colostomy bag. Why are you not at the desk? You're already agitated. Your life is going to end soon because you're stage 4. There's no cure. So you're already hyper agitated.
Oh, I didn't realize that about.
Yeah. You're already hyper agitated. You're already got your own personal stress that you're dealing with, your own anger that your life is about to end, but yet someone thought it was okay to put you in the field with a weapon with that state of mind that you have. Another issue that a lot of people were talking about, and we've been talking about it here in Detroit, is that why is there not a national database for law enforcement officers? People should not be able to cause harm in one city and move to another city and get another job and cause harm there and continuously move around without no one ever knowing. There should be a national database for law enforcement. It really should be. And I'll go as far as even physicians, because they cause harm too. There should be a national database that they have to register with, just like we register sex offenders. There should be a national database for law enforcement officers. If they have any excessive force or anything, that's detriment to the community members that they serve, it should be listed there. They should be listed there. So the next police station, sheriff department that they go to, they can pull that and see, okay, well, we don't want you. You've had this, you've done this, you've done this, you've done this, and then it should be some type of 3 strikes you're out type thing. We have too many law enforcement out here that have been reprimanded and have too many community member complaints that go unheard of, unchecked, and they're still out here. There's so much that can be done within the police.
Just the whole accountability, police accountability. Yeah. Yes.
There's something should be done. And my daughter brought the video to me. I did not want to watch it, but it was bothering her. It was bothering her.
I did not watch it. Danya watched it. I haven't watched it either.
It was bothering her so because she had watched it. I can see the pain and agony in her face. And I said, okay, let me see. And so she showed me the portion of the video when he finally turned his body cam on after coming out of the house. He referred to her in a derogatory name. You just took a woman's life and you have no respect for her whatsoever. You told your partner, don't waste your medical kit on her. That's a headshot. She'll be gone in a minute. She was still alive. That is so callous. That is just callous beyond. I just can't fathom someone with that type of mindset. And they're supposed to protect and serve.
That's scary. That's crazy.
I was Donna was talking about, she referred to a book that when she was just dealing with this whole situation.
Black Fatigue?
Black Fatigue.
Yes.
And when I told her, when I watched it, I was thinking about the Vikings, the movie The Vikings, and how even in spiritual institutions, how callous thinking that they were, and they were quick to murder. That was Vikings. They were quick to murder people. They had a superiority mentality, but instead of the gun, they had swords. They wielded swords. So it is that DNA that has plagued the American society. And so we need to root out those behaviors. And they're everywhere, as bad as, and I tell everybody, just watch the Vikings. Is really a telltale. Mm-hmm. The atrocities that they committed from nation to nation, even into Europe and down into Canada and even into the Americas. And it's that DNA that's, I think, has manifested itself, because there's mm-hmm. just so much lawlessness. And that's what I see, I guess I watched so many of those. They got so many different series of there, but the behaviors are atrocious.
And I think one thing that parents specifically, need to pay attention to, this desensitizes our children. It desensitizes our children. There is no empathy. There is no caring for another. And these are children, young adults that may want to go in law enforcement. This may be someone who's not really mentally ready to go into something like law enforcement, but because they see that nothing really happens to a law enforcement officer when they do such things,
right?
They're looking like, okay, I can do this. We have to be careful of, one, what we allow ourselves to see, especially as Black and brown people, because there's so much trauma every time there is one of these killings.
And it wears on your psyche.
There's so much trauma. And I was having a conversation. I was doing a live stream, and I asked a question. And majority of the people on the live stream, they were white women, white men. And I said, how long does it take to go to Whataburger? And it was just, to them, it was an odd question. But I had a point. How long does it take to get to Whataburger? They had no idea. I said it takes 17 minutes to get to Whataburger at my house. Once my kids get their order, if there's nothing wrong with their order, it takes them 32 minutes to go to Whataburger and come back. And I said, do you know why I know that? Because I'm Black and this is my everyday life. Whenever my kids leave the house, that is the stress that I have to deal with. Oh. Are they coming back?
Oh, man.
Are they coming back? Yeah. Black and brown people live daily under PTSD. It is daily. It is not something that we get away from. It's daily.
Daily. And that's why I was like, here we go again.
I reach out to my son, and he always, when I call him at a certain time, he always had to say, Mom, I'm safe. Because it plagued me so bad that I would just start calling, because I understand his routine, and he has to tell me to calm down, because this is like, really, like you said, PTSD. Every day I go through this, and what's going on, with him. But Danita, I want you to say something interesting. I don't know if you're looking online, but there's some interesting comments, especially from Lakbar. He's
I was gonna bring that out too. He's talking about root out my blank. We need to give what we get. And you know what? Teach them to defend themselves mentally as well as physically. That's true. But honestly, I think, is that in Project 2025? Are they trying to head us to a civil war or something? They just really want a fight.
But I mean, they've already said it. Yeah. He already said it on national news. He said it on national news. If you bring it, we're gonna give it to you. They've already put it out there. that this is the mindset that they have. If we don't get what we want and you try to buck against the system, we got something for you. They've literally said it, not in those, flowery terms that I use, but, they've literally said that.
Right.
Now, we'll definitely share some quotes and some highlights around what would be the impact of an authoritarian government with Project 2025. But it is about not only suppression, but it's about control. And I think this is why this conversation, we're leading with talking about this tragedy, but there is other things happening this week that we have seen people respond to. And the most major thing was on Sunday, Biden choosing to step down as the nominee, choosing not to run for re-election, and putting his endorsement behind Kamala Harris. So,
and I thought it was just crazy how Kamala was giving a speech, and then this was happening to Sonia Massey.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I'm excited though. I guess as we switch gears, that so many people have surrounded Kamala with support.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's exciting.
I think that's one thing that I'd be really curious about. I think the audience would be curious about, and we want the audience to participate and share y'all's perspective as well. What have y'all been hearing here at the Doc Bookshop from community members when that announcement was made, whether them visiting or reaching out to y'all or things like that? And then audience, what was your reaction? And then what have you heard from community members? Share with us so we can know too.
Well, here at the Doc Bookshop, we get all types of walks of life. Okay.
and emails.
Yes. And so the majority, of course, is definitely 100% behind Kamala. We just need to make sure Trump don't get in, period. So we've been getting a lot of good feedback from the community. But then, of course, there are those who are, because of all that has happened to us, are hesitant. Like, what does this really mean? Number one, and is she the best person?
And you have to think some of the people have had. You say Trump don't get in, but you have to talk to some of those people have had a good experience with Trump, and so you're dealing with.
They think they have. I don't know.
You think you had a good experience with the party, so that's relative. Is what it tells us is at this particular time, given the historic history.
But those who really talks about the Trump, okay, he's not so bad because we was going through COVID, and we were getting a stimulus checks and he was really helping businesses because we actually benefited from that as well. So but we got to understand that probably would have happened if Biden was in office.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's not so much Trump. I don't know. I think no matter who was in office, that was probably
not only would the government step in just like they've stepped in the past, and when Obama was in office and the financial collapse was happening with the banks, there was also stimulus checks into people during that time, and there was different things that were happening. But not only would that would happen, but I think one thing that people miss is how the Trump administration did not help protect people as COVID was spreading, as it was so new, before we had different medicines or different information about it. And
we can say that about now because there's so many people that are having COVID now. I met tons of people that had COVID now, so we can look at that same.
But it wasn't a pandemic.
So the difference, a sickness being spread is one thing, but the beginning of COVID, millions of people were dying.
Yeah, it was a pandemic,
and it was the amount of death that was happening that we were not actively trying to prevent. That was a big problem. But there was also a number of things that were happening that I think maybe the full conversation doesn't get had around what Trump's administration was or wasn't doing for the people. But I think, when you look at the economic downturn that happened and the lack of solutions to help prevent some of that stuff, and not
only that, but just people's energy.
I am of the fact that irregardless, until you come up with an agenda, and so and if we get into Project 2025, they came up with an agenda. You can give all the money, you can give 100 million, but if you gave 100 million without an agenda, we can be duped all over again, like you experienced with previous administrations.
And so I would I agree with you. I would love to see on the flip side of that a project 2025 that the Democrats have. I would love to see that. I mean, I have to commend you on that with the fact that you actually see.
And it's funny. It's funny that you bring that. It's funny that you bring that up because I shared a text with Alex today about how the Democratic Party in Texas was saying that they were going to do their first ever statewide coordinated campaign. And it's sort of like, what do you mean you're first? You've been doing things on your own. Like, what do you mean you're first? It should have always been coordinated. Every election should have always been a coordinated campaign. Like you should always be in sync with what you're doing with each other. Alex shouldn't be doing, picking apples and me picking oranges. We should both be picking the same thing. If we're trying to make an apple pie, it makes no sense. Yeah. And then, it's just, I think there's a lot of dysfunction because people don't know when to step down. A lot of elected officials, especially in Texas, in my home state of Mississippi, there's no succession planning. We just gonna die in this office. There's no succession planning. There's not anybody that they're bringing up. And because of the way they're so callous and cutthroat, young people are not wanting to get into that. They want to get in to make change. However, they don't want to have to deal with all the backdoor politics and bull that go on. There are people out here dying. And we've said this before. There are 800 people that die a day from poverty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we had to make sure we understand that with the Trump administration, it's Trump, but it's the Heritage Foundation. Right. So again, you're talking, Danita is bringing out points of everything that we're experiencing, and we need to put that in a framework and present it in such a way that it'll marry into somebody's campaign. So that's what they did. They came up with what they see, and they put their money behind their agenda. If you look at Project 2025 and those 4 different initiatives, I think it's 4 different thrusts, and so they line it up and said, we're going to line this up with the Trump campaign. So everybody said it's Trump. No, it isn't.
So what you're saying, we need a grassroots organization.
It is the Heritage Foundation
to really draft up a plan and then align their plan with whatever party can help their plan go
and
through.
Don't be me like Ice Cube, because Ice Cube said this years ago. And when he met with Trump, I ain't gonna go down that road because I don't want to. I don't want to be,
But you're right. I think in the end, it would be nice to have something in writing. So because as people are reading that 800-page document, whatever, we, as Democrats or just as we need to have something like that as well. Whether I don't say Democrats, whatever organization. I like that though.
Yeah. So I think one thing that sometimes we fall traps into is that, and I think this happened with Obama's election, is that there's a lot of enthusiasm and there's a lot of excitement about what the potential could be with what Obama represented and what was being talked about.
But no strategy.
But we need to make sure that we are fighting for the solutions. So it was absolutely historic that Obama was the first Black president of the United States. And one of the key legislation that was passed was the Affordable Care Act, which was around trying to improve healthcare for Americans. Now, some aspects of it improved healthcare. For example, pre-existing conditions could not be denied for you to be able to get healthcare, which was important. Young people could stay on their parents' policies longer as they are navigating, through whether the workforce or college or wherever it is, so that they didn't have a lapse in coverage. People could buy into insurance plans if they weren't employed, which was something that was major. But the downside was that those plans were way expensive. The downside was that there wasn't a single payer option for everybody to be able to choose an option, let's say, into Medicare, so that we could have government healthcare, the same healthcare that our elected officials have, that we couldn't buy into that if whether you were employed or not. That was removed from that option, which helped the private insurance companies, but did not help us have better healthcare. The other aspect was that the federal government offered Medicaid expansion to all 50 states, that they would give them more money to help cover more people under Medicaid. And they would pay the majority of the bill, but gradually they would pay less. But the bottom of that was that they would still pay 90%. And people were balking at the fact that they had to pay 10% of this increase. So what they compromised with was that the states could voluntarily choose to expand Medicaid versus it being required to expand Medicaid. And what that does is to states like Texas, we have never expanded Medicaid when we have 30 million people in our state and we have some of the worst health coverage and some of the worst health outcomes. And Texas has fought against Medicaid expansion, which if we did expand Medicaid, that would bring billions of dollars into Texas. That would help relieve some of the stresses we're seeing from people having to pay so much in property taxes or things like that, because the only healthcare people have is to go to their local county or like JPS or Parkland or things like that, or go to the emergency rooms. That increases costs, and that increases more that we have to build those systems. Yeah. So when we see somebody like Obama come into office, we're excited, but we don't stick with the solutions that we need to see for our community
and the details.
And I think the last thing that happened with Obama's election is that 2 years later, when we had a new election in 2010, that was not the presidential election, we didn't have people show up like they did in 2008. And our country fundamentally changed in 2010 because at the time before 2010, the state governments across the country, across the 50 states, the majority was divided government, meaning there was like a Democratic governor and maybe a Republican House and a Democratic Senate. It was split. Each party had some form of power. What they call a trifecta is when a party has all three branches:
the governor,
the state Senate, and the state House. So Democrats had the majority after the divided government, and then Republicans had the least amount of trifectas. In 2010, they became the majority in the country, where over 20 states had a Republican trifecta. How does that make an impact on all of us? Well, then the state governments redraw the lines on representation. So gerrymandering got pushed. They start to push laws so that they can challenge federal government and they can challenge in the Supreme Court. And we put ourselves on a path where this radicalized view of government starts to get normalized. And then Trump gets elected in 2016. So I think what's really important and the lessons we can learn over the last 16 years since Obama's election is that this is not a short-term fight. We have to be in it for the long term. And when people are trying to evaluate the pros and cons of Trump or Republican or Democratic presidency, it's not that we don't have to keep fighting, but it's what else do we have to fight is the question we should be asking ourselves.
Right.
Kamala becoming president is not a savior, just like Obama was not a savior.
No, exactly.
And it means we're going to have to keep fighting for certain things because there's things that the Kamala administration may not push for that we want to see for our people. So we have to fight. But just because we have to fight doesn't mean that we can't have progress, because one of the things that we can hopefully limit is that we're not having to fight more. Yeah. And we're going to jump into Project 2025 after we hear from Danita about what it looks like.
I think for me, we have to get out of the mindset that one person is going to save us.
Oh, definitely.
whether they're Democrat,
Or the
Republican,
administration.
whatever. We have to get out of the mindset that they're going to save us. We have to start looking and working collectively to save ourselves, because many of us, there are what, 7 million people in the state of Texas. Million, not 100, not 1,000. 7 million people in the state of Texas are poor, barely making it, barely keeping a roof over their heads, and they don't vote. And you know why they don't vote? Because they don't hear their issues. Nobody talks about poverty. Nobody talks about a livable wage. Nobody talks about the rent increases. Nobody talks about not being able to provide food over themselves. Let's talk about, you all were talking about the Medicaid expansion. We got a $28 billion rainy day fund. We could fully fund Medicaid in the state of Texas and still be in the billions with a rainy day fund. Why are we holding on to so much money? Our governor cut mental health services.
I'm laughing because Diane talks about it all the time.
Oh man!
When the Uvalde shooting happened at the school, the first thing our governor said was, "Well, we have to increase mental health services." Well, sir, you cut $13 million from the mental health budget.
Nobody has an answer.
That this is the answer, but you're cutting funding from what you say the answer is. We have to start looking at facts, and we have to get out of the TV and the media, because oftentimes the media is not for us. The media is telling us what we want to hear, but they're not getting to the meat of it. And I know, because a lot of people are busy living and working and trying to just survive, so they don't have time to do that. That's why these types of live streams and conversations are important in the community. However, we got to get involved. Everybody is running about, okay, I'm excited that we have another female running for president. I'm excited about that. But if and whenever she's elected, what she does in DC probably won't trickle down to us for 4 or 5 years. But what our governor does, what our county commissioners do, what our county judges do, if they're elected November 5th, whatever they do comes into effect November 6th. It's not a 3-4 year wait. It's an immediate wait. And we have to start getting more people out to the polls for these local elections, instead of just waiting on the savior in the presidential election, because the damage that's happening across the state and in Tarrant County is because of low voter turnout in local elections. We're getting crap. I had to think about where I was. We're getting crap because we're not being vocal about our needs. Like, we're screaming to our friends and family,
or we don't have this project written out like Project 2025. I really would love to see, and I don't know if I know I will be a part of it, but I don't know who is to do it. But I would love to see something in writing, like.
But it's already been done. It's already been done. And if any of you or anyone that's listening is familiar with Reverend Barber and the Poor People's Campaign, they did a Souls of Poor People's budget. We took the budget, the United States budget, we took their actual budget and funded everything that we said we needed to pull people out of poverty. We utilized the same funding that they had. We just reallocated it. And they were able to fully fund Medicaid. And that budget was presented to the Budget Committee in Congress in 2020, I believe. They have a plan. They're not utilizing it. And they didn't have to write it out.
The plan has to be given to the multitude. And that's what they did. They mass marketed that Project 2025. Similar to when the Black Panther Party reached its pinnacle, because it was mass marketed. It's not.
They had their 10-point program.
Yeah, it was not isolated to a group of people. It was mass distributed. Everybody in the household, in their party. When I read Project, and we're gonna have to go through Project 2025. They understood it. Every group, every entity that's supporting Project 2025 And it's a lot of organizations, not only the Heritage Foundation, but it's additional organizations a part of that was distributed too. So even if when we have a plan, that plan has to be distributed to all the people. It has to go to, and that gets down to budgets. Back to what Danita was saying is, what are we doing locally? Well, what are we doing locally that they're doing nationally? They're funding. If they raised in 36 hours, they raised how many 100 million?
44.
In less than 48 hours, 231 million.
So what does that do for a campaign? We don't get that type of a budget or funding or donations in Tarrant County, to administer those house to house, everything that needs done to get people out to vote. And it's just saying that, merely just saying it is not enough. And so they understood the mission, what it is to get people to the polls. And sad to say, it's not the condition of what people are dealing with. It is the funding, the money that is generated, that you go out and put it into these different communities. Hopefully they'll see the communities that need the most people that need to get out and vote. Mm-hmm. Instead of having it become some type of, glamorous type of process stuck in Hollywood. That's what stuck in Hollywood and Hollywood initiative and Hollywood voices that doesn't reach the people that makes a difference.
Yeah,
but
so
we also have to change our mindset around our mentality around our actual struggle. Oftentimes, when I was trying to share the Poor People's Campaign budget with people, the first question people would say to me, I'm not poor. And then I would have to ask them, if you lost your job today, would you be homeless? And that's a realized question. If you lost your job today, would you get evicted? And the answer is yes. Well, baby, you poor.
Mm-hmm. And language is everything. Maybe we could change that name. You know what I'm saying? But seriously, I know that's probably, but I'm just saying, people don't want to identify, kind of like we're going this Kanye thing. Maybe we need to look into that and really call it something where people can get behind and they don't have any hang-ups.
But that's the mentality of people today. The things that we consider vulgar, like slutty vegan, is normalized. So this is what they're doing. Language right now that we consider has been normalized. Don't get me wrong, I like slutty vegan, but but those things. But it's a concept,
right? So I'm just saying
that's playing a part in society. So we can't get caught up in the. I'm just saying we can't get caught up because they're doing it.
But I'm saying that is those little things. If it's going to hinder the reach, change the name. Call it Project. Call it something simple like Project Power or something. Put something to it where people could really rally behind it.
I understand what you're saying, but the mindset, I guess it shifts.
I think definitely there's validity to like branding and things like that, but we also have to be able to face facts. Yeah. And I think there's an American delusion that we fall under because of how much the capitalist system is thrown at us as we're meritocracy. If you really want to earn your way, you'll work hard, you'll do it, and you'll be able to make it. And this, idea of what this American dream is. And the fact of the matter is there are several things that are happening that people are choosing that are not our choices to make sure that people struggle and to make sure that people aren't able to thrive in our society. One of those is wages. So there's a stat that the Poor People's Campaign for Texas, 39.8%, 40 essentially, which is 40% of the workforce in Texas earns less than $15 an hour. 40% of the workforce.
And inflation and prices is off the market.
And inflation is not because of some uncontrollable economic process or system. It's because corporations are being greedy.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about identifying people as poor or people recognizing as poor, one thing we've got to make sure is that that's not a negative. This is being
No.
done to us.
What
Right.
I'm saying is,
No one wakes
again,
up in the morning and say, you know what, I'm gonna be poor today.
right.
The
It's
system
not a
has done it
negative,
for
but what
us.
I'm saying is if it's a language thing and we're really trying to brand and move a movement, this generation might not get behind a poor people's campaign. So you gotta, that's why even you can see with the Black Panthers, it was power to the people. You gotta empower people.
And
Now go ahead.
I just want to take this, not to cut you off, because it's right along the lines that you were saying in Kamala's book, The Truth We Hold. I like this book, really.
Books are available at the Doc Book Shop. You can also go online to thedocbookshop.com and order your books.
And what I say, I
And you
like.
can also register to be a Doc Bookshop member.
Thank you.
She's gonna be forever our correspondent, right?
That's
But
Please.
it says she wrote, words have the ability to empower and to deceive, the power to soothe and to hurt. They can spread important ideas and wrong-headed ones. She also goes on to say they can spur people to action for good or ill. Words are incredibly powerful, and people in power whose words can carry feathers and facets have an obligation, a duty to speak them with precision and wisdom. Scripture tells us the one who has knowledge uses words with restraint, and whoever has understanding is even tempered. So just going back to your thing, it's just interesting how
yeah.
and she goes on to say in this whole section about words, and the power of words and why words matter and why words become a strategy.
Words. I mean, and no, and don't trip. Other groups manipulate words. Like, but what we call woke has changed.
Yes.
I am confused.
It's become a negative. It's become a
I am
negative.
so
They've taken it.
confused how they define woke. I'm like, is that your difference?
Right.
I mean,
and let's be honest,
When we call
has
conscience,
been
that's changed. I'm like, really?
DEI has been a placeholder for using the N word.
Right.
You know?
Or affirmative action now. Oh, you a DEI
Yeah.
hire. It's just crazy to me. So I agree. Words are tricky. And I think, you just got to be careful. And I think, again, as we try to empower people, I would love to see something in writing for the people. And I like how you said we already have something there, it's already done. And if it's just a matter of rebranding that thing and put it out there and letting people get behind something, I think that would be great.
So before we transition to Project 2025, I'll just read the 17-point agenda of the Poor People's
And
Campaign.
before we go there, I just want to just also make another commentary, because y'all talk about different people come to the bookstore. Now, what do you do when? Because I have people tell me that Project 2025 is a joke. It's not real. It's fake. It's
But you know
by,
what? If you don't want people to know something, you put it in the book.
And
Remember?
they have a book. They have a
Because
book.
people act like Project 2025.
That's not real. That's fake. That's some darn DMs.
People act like Project 2025 just came out last month. Project 2025 has been out almost a year now.
Yeah, and it's been a plan that's been developed for decades. I mean,
right.
When they
just put
wanted
it right.
when they wanted to overturn Roe v. Wade, they started working on that 40 years ago.
Oh yeah.
So it went through different names of what they were trying to do, but their plan and their goals was always the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so Project 2025 is just the latest branding, but it's essentially centered around having an
age-old thought.
having an authoritarian government and utilizing a Christian nationalist perspective to justify the centralization of power, where our government was structured to have checks and balances. They essentially want to be able to remove those and have centralized power in an executive position so that the president becomes king, and that's their approach. So we're going to talk about Project 2025, but I want to just run through the 17-point agenda of the Poor People's Campaign to talk about what their focus areas are. And these are just headline items. There's a whole detailed document, and like Denise said, a whole detailed budget. And everything.
Yeah, and this is just part one of the conversation. I know, because we got to be mindful of time.
We didn't get a chance to read all of Lakbar's comments.
He got a lot of comments. We appreciate your support, Lakbar. We're going to get
But I invite everybody to go and read his comments, because they're just some very rooted comments that we need to really,
Well, it's
hone in
different
on.
people's perspectives, right?
Uh-huh.
Different
And I
people's
just want to say another commentary before we get into that. Kamala, because people always say Kamala, and I don't know if he's behind that, but a lot of people are saying that Kamala, you know, she's not good because of her past history with
Everybody has a
sending folks to jail.
past. Everybody
Sending
has
folks to jail. And I have to remind people about Donald Trump and what he did to them 5 boys. They
Yeah.
forget that.
Yeah.
You know, and so look, you can't.
Well, if you're going to criticize Kamala for those things, then take that criticism fully to
Yeah.
Trump.
Yeah.
And,
So
you know, if
and I can stop there. Trump did a whole bunch of stuff, but you know, he tried to criminalize 5 children.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
And he took an ad out to do it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Yes,
no,
full page ad. A full page ad.
yeah, and
a
he's,
full page ad. So I tell people who come at me with that, I just remind them because they forget.
yeah.
You know, them boys, they were children, and that movie tore me up. So anyway, let's go into 2025.
Yeah.
But for those who have that thought, get over it. And,
So, really quick, Poor People's Campaign 17-point agenda. If you want to stage my screen.
this is where I come.
Her laptop died, everybody, so she has to get up.
Where did you
Come
go?
on, tech person. Come on.
Let's see. Where did it go?
Where did he go? Okay, well, Alice got to bring it back up.
So while Alex is bringing that back up, can I read some of those comments? Let me see.
What? Like, Bar, you got a lot on your mind.
I don't see the chat here.
Oh, some of that stuff we're not going to repeat. I tell you that much.
You gotta go to the comments.
Voting won't save us. Okay, Danita, talk to that subject. He's saying voting won't save us. What do you say when someone says
Danita,
that?
take care of that one.
Voting got you the rights that you do have now. So if voting doesn't save you, I mean, I'm confused because voting has got you at the field, sir, and into a job. Voting has got you to have the ability to buy a house. Voting has got women the ability to have their own bank account and their own credit card. So I'm kind of confused what you mean when you say voting can't save us.
Yeah. Now
Okay, and
if we want to just let the voting alone won't save us, I can understand that statement because voting plus advocacy plus activism plus, you know, organizing, that's what got us to all of these places. But voting is very much a part of that equation.
Okay, so there it is. And what else? I see. I like that one. The hands we are looking for are at the end of our arms. I like that. Okay.
Yep.
So you
stage my screen.
And he's ready to find out what Project 2025 is.
okay? So let's.
All right. So really quick, we're just going to share you talk about a plan. We're going to go through Project 2025, but here's an example of the Poor People's Campaign is abolishing poverty as the 4th leading cause of death in the U.S. We have the economic means for poverty not to exist. There's a budget that exists that shows that. A living minimum wage of at least $15 an hour indexed for inflation. So if they try to pull inflation on us, wages will be able to
Go
be
ahead and make
increased.
that full screen so they can see it.
Let's see.
There we
All
go. Okay.
All right. So then full and expanded voting rights. No more voter suppression. What does voter suppression look like? You know, where you're not able to register to vote on the day of election. You aren't, that you have to vote with government ID, right?
That they're shutting down certain locations.
Yeah,
That's
shutting down
suppression.
locations, right?
And no longer
In Tarrant
using
County,
school
they're trying to
ID.
get rid of countywide voting so that you can
Yeah.
go to any polling location, right?
Mhm.
And they want to make sure you can only go to one location. That's voter suppression.
Yeah.
We want guaranteed workers' rights and labor rights. We want health care for all. We want affordable, adequate housing, strong social welfare and safety net programs, addressing militarism and the war economy. They gave an example of just reducing our military expenditures in our budget by 10% allows us to address so many societal ills. It's not saying we get rid of our military budget, but reduce it by 10%, and we have millions of dollars to do, billions of dollars to do other things.
Right.
And into gun violence,
Yeah,
the
you lost me
profit.
on the military.
Huh?
Okay, the military. You said
It's a lot of money going towards the military.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think what a lot of people
And to be
don't know
honest, that
is
military money is going
Yeah.
towards other countries too. So
Yeah.
it's
that's where it needs to stop.
Yeah.
But you know, first rule of thumb is to protect your country,
Right.
protect your
And it's
No,
not
no.
saying that we won't have the ability to protect our country,
yeah,
but
it's over budget.
they are just like inflation is gouging the consumer. The militarism and war economy is gouging the taxpayers, and we need to course correct that.
Yeah.
And just balance it out. And to be honest, I think that's where some could go.
But
to
at the end of
education.
the end of the day, people are putting their lives. And I guess I'm sensitive now because I have nephews that are in the military, and a lot of people, especially the Army, where mostly a lot of African American men are in the Army. So we need to make sure we do everything to protect our soldiers that are going to be on the front line. So there's got to be some
But
other
take the
areas.
example of the Iraq War and Afghanistan War, and the trillions of dollars that were spent on that. Was that money well spent? And did we accomplish what we wanted to accomplish in those spaces? Or is that area now having a lot of issues of dysfunction because of the work that was done there? There's a lot of
Well,
You know-
it's
you
a
know-
telltale that
Right.
it could have been used for the art. Sometimes we use war, and it's been seen where you use war and military might for personal and corporate agenda. So,
but
yeah.
no institution is pure.
uh-huh.
No matter how pure the intentions are of wanting to protect people.
And I think you just
No,
said it. You hit on the nail. Is a lot of it is personal. It's agendas.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, because let's face it, we send our young low income kids to war to fight another country's low income kids
which is probably
over oiling rights. We didn't
Right.
fight because there was an invasion. We fought for oil. And I know that I had my kid's godmother, my best friend, and my brother were in
So-
those wars.
So
And they
there
were
is a
traumatized
reduction in
coming
military
back.
spending that is available to us to help serve our needs.
But let's hear
But-
it about
yeah.
before
So,
we interrupt.
Add
Okay,
an
okay.
end to gun violence, profit and proliferation. The way gun violence is being spread because of the emphasis on profit and proliferation. Environmental justice that secures clean air and water. So we have issues like Flint, Michigan.
Right.
We have issues
Still
in
going on.
Dallas. There is
Mhm.
a city
a city in
in
Dallas,
Dallas that does not
yes.
have running water, doesn't have clean
Yes.
water.
I forget the name of that city. I heard about that. That's crazy.
City in
Justice-
Dallas is a city. Did I miss something?
There's
No, there's an unincorporated town outside of Dallas
Oh,
that
okay.
does not have running water and
Okay,
has
I
not
got
had
you.
running water since the late 70s.
So justice for all
Thank you,
indigenous
Thank you, Daniel,
nations.
for having to spell everything out.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. Keep going, Alex.
Justice for all indigenous nations. Fully funded public education, just immigration laws, fully protected women's rights, advocate peace, ceasefire in Gaza, release hostages, pursue justice, and halt global genocide, an end to hate, division, and the extremist political agenda, which they in more detail call out the Christian
Oh.
nationalist movement.
Oh, but
So,
rebrand that and put it out. You will get so many voters.
there are more details around this, but this is kind of the summary. But let's go to Project 2025. So Project 2025 is the Presidential Transition Project. On their official website, this is the official website we're sharing. They're building now for a conservative victory through policy, personnel, and training. So from the get-go,
Conservative
they
victory.
see it as a conservative policy and victory. And so some of the key areas they are looking at is policy agenda. So they have a whole 900-page focus on their policy agenda and all their components.
I need to write this down because people ask me.
They have a comprehensive personnel database because they want to vet who they are going to bring on to implement the components of Project 2025 and make sure that they are aligned with that. They have training that they are doing, and then they have their 100-day playbook. Now, one of the major organizations that are behind this is the Heritage Foundation. Heritage Foundation is a conservative think tank that has so much money. They're the ones who help develop policy ideas and help pass it along to legislators and push for the extremism that we're seeing in many ways. An example of that is that the Heritage Foundation president and Project 2025 architect, Kevin Roberts, says, "We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be." So they see this as a revolution that they are pursuing, and that this hostile
if we don't do
takeover,
nothing, it could be
Yeah.
bloodless.
if this hostile takeover that they want of this government will be bloodless. And this, for me, starts ringing to the Civil War, because the Confederacy was fighting for their way of life, and they went to war for it, and they saw that approach fail.
And they haven't gotten over it.
And they haven't gotten over it.
No, which is why they still carry the
folks
rebel
do
flag.
hold grudges.
And now that movement of the Confederacy movement has merged with different aspects of the American Nazi movement that happened during World War II, where Madison Square Garden was filled with Americans supporting the Nazi movement. And when we hear the term today, America First, that term was utilized in that Nazi Madison Square Garden event where they were emphasizing America First. So these things are merging together and connected and have been documented in Project 2025.
Wow.
Okay, so before I jump into the details, Danita, share your thoughts and reflections on this first part of what we shared so far.
Well, I kind of like, yeah, it's sort of like a bait. It's like they're baiting you to push back against them because they want this to be, they want blood to be spilled. It's like a bait, because who's going to sit?
And if we don't participate, they're going to do it anyway, like we've seen with Sonia Massey.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You either sit down and shut up, or you pick up whatever you can and you fight for what you believe in. This is what they're doing. They're fighting for what they believe in. And we can't fight for what we believe in because we're so divided. We are divided. We're divided because we're busy trying to hold on to our titles of this organization. We want our organization to lead this, or we're trying to hold on to our elected official spot. Even though we got arthritis and carpal tunnel and we can't hold a pen, but we're trying to hold on to that spot because that defines who I am. It's not even about the people anymore. And the people are so drained and tired and numb to all of it because they're the ones that's struggling. They're the ones that's holding the brunt of everything that's happening. Every policy that has been passed from the federal legislation down to the state legislation, it falls on the backs of poor dispossessed people. They are catching the brunt of it.
I agree.
And we look at, okay, if they broken down, they said we are in the process of the Second American Revolution. When it's all said and done, in Texas, the Seven Started Confederacy, which is it's actually a great book, but that whole process, everything that they done, it all came back to slavery.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, no matter what battle you won, every battle they talk about, okay, it came back to slavery and the enslavement of the people. So now we have to find this second wave. What are you fighting for? Are we fighting for the preservation of people, of humanity, the sacredness of humanity? Those are things that I do understand, and they have aligned this with somebody I used to quote all the time. It is, and who they followed for years. I'm not jumping on Project 2025. I'm just trying to look at the mindset of a group of people that are dealing with self-preservation, like we all should deal with self-preservation. And Ronald Reagan, I just quote, nobody knew it was Ronald Reagan. He said, freedom and liberation is not passed through our DNA. We have to fight for it. We have to go after it. each and every day. So if Ronald Reagan said that in a privileged class with entitlement, with not a compromised history, we should do nothing of short but fight for our freedom and liberation each and every day, because it can be taken. It's not passed through your DNA. So,
Girl, if you don't text me that quote.
But if you know, if nothing else comes from this, I just hope that we can get a document, because I love the fact that they have a document. But go ahead. Let's
Let's get into the details of some of what Project 2025 is proposing. So there is an organization that's come together, and several different organizations have come together to try to decode and break down what is Project 2025 trying to accomplish.
Right. You had a meeting today with Pastor Bell.
Yeah.
And
so one of the things we reviewed was Stop the Coup 2025, because essentially what Project 2025 is doing is trying to fundamentally change what the American Constitution says and really throw out parts of it, but also change how our government is structured. And so
it's really anti-government
in very dangerous ways.
Well, that's what the Confederacy, in that book, they talk about it. They said they were patriotic, but going against the Union and the government, that was unpatriotic.
Yeah.
So Project 2025 background and vision. Project 2025 marks the second major vision document or mandate for leadership by Christian right groups. The first was in 1981, the year Ronald Reagan became president. By the end of that year, 60% of their proposed reforms had become policy, they claim. After Trump was elected in 2016, conservatives pushed through 2/3 of their fifth mandate for leadership agenda. As the newest vision paper, Project 2025 carries forward the unfinished proposals of 2016 and 2022, but represents a major departure in both scope and the granular detail of its ambition to recapture the White House and overhaul our system of government and power. Okay, so ideology. Project 2025 backs a vision of a smaller federal government, shifting decision-making power to the state level of government, and where possible, shifting government functions and responsibilities to the private sector. That's not a surprise. But in what makes a radical departure, it backs a unitary executive theory of power, giving special, unprecedented, supreme powers to the executive branch to carry out these reforms. Such a step would radically alter our present U.S. democratic system of checks and balances. Many of the reforms proposed for various agencies are aimed at reducing or delaying the oversight power of Congress and the courts to oppose the rapid implementation of Project 2025's agenda. They call for aligning federal domestic and foreign policy with conservative Christian religious values. It would replace secular public education with Christian-based education and shift public education dollars to private and Christian schools. The vision is not only an embrace of authoritarianism, but envisions a future Christian-led theocracy, to where this religious view is what's leading our society. Now, there may be a history of majority of people choosing the Christian religion, but that is their choice to pursue that faith.
Right.
Not that our government is
I believe in a separation
that.
of
So
faith and religion.
it seeks to eliminate or merge key government regulatory departments and agency and drastically reverse current Biden domestic and foreign policy in every critical sector. Some proposals call for the creation of novel parallel advisory bodies from the private sector to be given new authority to advise, create, or revise federal policy with a direct line of access to the next GOP president. Okay, so that's the ideology behind that. Okay, so let's talk about some of the playbook of the 100-day playbook.
Sound European and English and monarchy.
Monarchy for sure. It's a king versus a president, right? So key implementation steps need to be taken in the first 6 months of 2025 under a new Republican president. To execute their ambitious plan, they aim to recruit and train 20,000 conservative Christian loyalists to replace career civil servants, starting with high-level positions. They are relying on presidential executive orders to enact overnight personnel and policy changes. On day one, loyalists will be placed in acting high-level positions authorized by executive order to carry out decisions for the department. Some will be acting nominees that require Senate confirmation hearings. Others do not. It calls for agency teams of experienced department heads to train and advise recruits for key positions. As of November 2023, over 5,000 candidates had submitted resumes to the Heritage Foundation for consideration to join the next GOP government. The main task of new recruits is rulemaking to write or revise policy that adheres to conservative Christian values, ideology, and political goals. And they are being asked to prove their fealty of Project 2025's agenda. So they want loyalists through and through, so that whatever the king decides and what the king is pushing for, they do everything they can to push it.
They want a Margaret Taylor Greene.
Yeah.
I'm speechless.
So that's just one piece of this. They are anti-LGBTQ, anti-diversity, anti-democracy, anti-labor, and anti-environment.
Anti-democracy.
Absolutely.
So much for now you know the direction of the voting, because the voting is a part of democracy.
Right. And they're using the tools of democracy to break it down. You know, they're using the tools of democracy to break it down.
People look at the United States in terms of we're the top 5 nations, across the world. And so they look at our democracy and say, if that's what democracy looks like, then we don't even want. So it's breaking us down, not only in the United States, but it's breaking down globally. When they look at democracy is not going to work if you take away the voting. So that's going to create not only dictatorship historically, not only dictatorship here, but dictatorship across the world. So you see again.
And we used to fight for democracy. That's what the United States is known for. I'm just shocked by that.
Yeah, and you know.
And I haven't heard that word too much lately. That's interesting. You used to hear it a lot.
We look at history.
But slowly that word has come out of the language.
There hasn't been a dictatorship that has ended well.
No.
If we look through history. And so it's important for us to understand, well, is our democracy perfect? No. There's a lot of oligarchy in our democracy where rich people rule the day. And there's too much money because of a Supreme Court decision of Citizens United in 2012 that allowed corporations to essentially fund unlimited money into political campaigns. That's a part of their agenda. They got the Supreme Court to a position to be able to pass that, to be able to approve that, so they could keep flooding this money to build their infrastructure and network to do what they're trying to do.
Wow.
Right? So let's talk a little bit about anti-diversity.
So would that increase book bans?
Yeah. Yes.
So
here's anti-diversity. It takes aim at racial justice, progressive wokeness, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and racial equality, firmly opposing the concept of affirmative action. It calls for erasure and reversal of reforms related to DEI, as well as accessibility and racial equality. The entire Mandate for Leadership document takes the extraordinary position that to recognize race as a category is in itself racist. Thus, any DEI attempts to promote better understanding of how racial inequality functions in the present day are racist. It calls for replacing public schools and secular education with Christian education, redirecting federal education money to private Christian-led institutions, and aligning policy with Christian religious values. So one of the ways we examine what is happening in our country is by having data around race so that we can see how people are impacted when Fort ISD gets ESSER funds and decides to distribute it amongst the district. And we can see that schools with largely Black students did not get nearly enough funds compared to other schools, or did not address the extreme inequities. We get to see that data because we have the data organized by race. They essentially want to be able to eliminate that data so that nobody will know, so that you will not know, and be able to hold them accountable.
And I look at that as a challenge against the Black church. Because the Black church sits on Christian principles and values. even being split across the board from Southern Baptist, all those different splits that happen during the fight for freedom and liberation is now being challenged, because what are you going to say to a Bishop Jakes? Now he's got, oh, you support Kamala. That means you don't support Christian values that we're
Right.
preaching out here.
It's
So
their
now-
Christian values, right? It's the Christian values of women are subservient to their husbands. It's Christian values of we want to get rid of no-fault divorce, so women can't divorce their husbands, right?
Yeah.
It's their version of Christian values, which we all know are not Christian values. It's just they're labeling that, right? It's an extreme perspective. Go for it, Danita.
No, I was saying you're right, because I mean, we have something going on now that in one state I can't remember. If your wife is pregnant, she can't. Her divorce will not be granted. Like we're here, like parts of Project 2025 have already taken place. I mean, think about the takeover of the school boards. If you read in depth about the education part of Project 2025, that has already taken place. They have corrupted many of the school boards within the state of Texas. Project 2025 is already here. And a lot of people are just they're playing catch up now because it's been publicized.
They've
Like,
been
it's on
testing
major
elements
platforms.
of it in our local government for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Project 2025 is here. And if you really want to be honest with the decline of the destruction of education as we know it, as we grew up in it started with Betsy DeVos. Her claim to fame was she wanted to get rid of public schools and just have charter schools all over the place, even though her charter schools in Michigan are failures. But it started then. I mean, Project 2025 in some form has been here for some time, and we have just not put two and two together.
They're
Right.
they're trying to
Well, like
enforce it
Alex
across
said,
the government.
it's an ongoing document.
They're
So
enforcing
it's been going
it.
on for a while.
It's being enforced.
Well, they feel so strong in their position right now that they don't feel like they need to have it in hiding anymore, right?
Oh, they're that secure, yeah.
That's called
They feel
planning.
that secure. I mean, why did the KKK wear hoods, right? Because a part of it
Well, they
was,
wear suits now.
yeah,
They got suits.
a part of it was that, we know who these people are, but we're not really going to know. You know what I mean? But they wanted to have some kind of anonymity.
Right.
Now they are not wearing. Now they are openly publishing this information because they feel secure that they can't.
You can't do
stop.
nothing about it.
You can't stop us, and we need to recognize that, because a lot of this stuff used to be behind closed doors. A lot of the stuff would not be viewable to the public.
Mm-hmm.
And now they feel like because of the immense amount of misinformation and disinformation that they've put into the community, the amount of podcasts and social media influencers that are paid to push their product, they feel they have the public in a position that if they show this and publish it, people are going to be like, I can get down with that. And that's scary.
Some people are.
That's scary that's scary that they think they're in that position.
Mhm.
And I think one of the things that the reason you saw enthusiasm around the endorsement of Kamala is not about Kamala specifically, but it's about the ability to have a rejection of what they are selling. Because she's a woman of color, right? Because women have been at the center of what they're trying to break down by taking away reproductive rights, by trying to have this subservient view of women. And so she represents an idea that is antithesis to them. And that
In a
has been
big way.
one of the things that has caused such enthusiasm. Now, it means that we got to push for a plan that's actually going to serve the people.
Mhm.
And if Kamala gets
Yeah.
elected, we got to push for accountability to make sure that things are done for the people. Our fight doesn't end.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think as voters and non-voters, that's where we fail at. We get people are elected and we feel that all is lost. They are representing you. You hired them by electing them. People, I've talked to people that, what do you mean I can make an appointment with my elected official? Baby, you can make an appointment with your elected official. You'd be surprised how many people don't know that they can actually make an appointment with their elected official and have a sit down. Whether or not your elected official does that is something different. But they have the ability to do that. But a lot of people don't know, and then they don't know what to say when they go. Well, if your water brown, then that's what you say. My water brown. What you gonna do about it? You know, and don't leave till you get a definitive answer. Don't leave with I'm gonna look at it, I'm gonna find out. No, you need to give me a definitive timeline of when this problem can go away. We don't hold our elected officials accountable, and that's why they always have the ability to get away with crap, because we don't hold them accountable, and they're banking on us not holding them accountable.
But education is power. I think the more we know, and
the more you grow,
the more you grow.
So I'll end this by showing the anti-democracy elements, and then we'll end it there. But there's a lot more in this.
There's a part 2 coming, folks. We will.
So there's anti-diversity, anti-immigrant. There's an isolation view about America First. Once again, America First was projected in that Madison Square Garden building back in the 30s with people. There was an American movement,
which has been
Nazism.
Translated to Make America Great Again.
Right. Anti-environment, anti-labor. Well, let's talk about anti-democracy. Project 2025 details its tacit embrace of authoritarianism via the call to invest a president with unprecedented powers, eliminate or reshuffle cabinet and other high-level positions, stock the government with loyalists, and fire career professionals who might resist the GOP takeover. While arguing for transparency, it calls for giving private groups unprecedented access and decision-making authority to help govern the country. Wow. Going further, Project 2025 calls for using the U.S. military to assist the FBI and domestic law enforcement in conducting domestic surveillance. It calls for clamping down on groups who dissent with the president's agenda in the name of fighting domestic terrorism. So we have the right to protest. It's in our Constitution. But if you're protesting the president and they don't like it, they could classify you as domestic terrorists. Taken together, these reforms advance in a vision for autocracy and Christian theocracy, a combination never seen in U.S. history. And so this is just page 5 of 90.
Do you think Amber Rose read this?
No, I think Amber Rose is cashing a paycheck.
They really got on her like some
Well, that's what he just said. I mean, they're getting the influencers and all that to push their agenda.
And people are paying to sell out their communities because of a paycheck.
Because
and we've always seen
because we don't have a memory.
And unstable.
We don't have a memory. Next year, nobody will remember that Amber Rose did that.
Right.
I think the cancel culture is unforgiving of that.
Well, it's been a lot today, y'all. We got to continue this conversation. This is just I have to. Danita, I'm experiencing black fatigue. Okay, it's just too much, and I'm just tired.
No, I think.
But we can't afford to rest.
No,
we gotta stay alert.
There's too much at stake. There's too much at stake.
Yeah, we can't be tired.
That's a serious plan right there.
And once again, it's not that it means Kamala would solve everything for people.
Yeah.
But the question is, we will continue to have to fight. But if Trump wins, how much more will we have to fight? And will we have the ability to fight? That's the question that's in front of us right now. And that's what's at stake with this election.
But they're going to have to put, even though they got Trump in the office, they still got to fill the House and the Senate. So they got Trump in there. This still can play a part in local elections and impact local elections.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing.
Because one thing if we didn't learn, if we didn't learn anything from former President Obama's era, local elections are important, because who we sent to Congress is who denied him to have a very successful 4 years. Because the people that we put in office in our states are the ones that went to Congress, and they were the ones that pushed back on everything and made the statement that we're not going to pass anything that you want.
Exactly.
And so we have to understand, if we want our president to be successful and to fundamentally change how our lives are, we got to send people to Congress that reflect our values.
Right.
And then we need people in our state house with our state legislature and our county commissioners court and our city council and our school board, because one thing that we've talked with folks throughout Texas is that we see Governor Abbott, we see people like Governor Abbott and Judge O'Hare of Tarrant County and others already trying to implement parts of this project in their positions.
Like
And-
Nita said, a lot of us in there already.
And regardless if Trump or Kamala wins the presidency in Texas, for us, we're going to be fighting this vision of Project 2025 for quite a while until we get those people out of office who support this kind of government or this view or these policies.
Well, you better figure out Ted Cruz is well on his way right now.
Yep.
And I'm gonna say this last thing. This is like my call to arms. We have got to be able to start raising funds so we can change that state constitution, because until there's an amendment to that constitution that sets a term limit for governors, Abbott will die in that office.
Well, you know, we've seen
Or distributing those funds that are raised.
Yeah.
So that's another mechanism, is the distribution of funds.
Yeah,
Like
'cause we
Anita,
see
you're
the
doing a lot
funds
of work.
raised. You said it. How much was raised in a couple of
231 million.
So-
That needs to go to local community organizers.
Share that.
And who's always at the top of everybody's conversation in politics? It's always, whenever it's said and done, it always comes to Texas. So they need people like your organization to get this funding. If you already got it sealed in the north, then it behooves you to concentrate your efforts in the Sun Belt area across the South. So that is a strategy that, if it's not happening, it's a telltale sign of how those funds are getting distributed. If they're not getting distributed into the cities or the
local
communities, the states, that's always at the top of any political conversation in New York and DC.
Yep. If you change the South, so goes the South, so goes the nation.
There it is.
Say that again. We got us a part 2 already.
Okay, we really
I
good
know.
because our time is
Yeah.
up. Is past 9 o'clock.
Danita and I
so,
can probably go all night.
so we want to thank everyone for joining us at our community meeting, our Black and Brown Coalition community meeting. We do this. When is our next meeting, Alex? The second.
We need to do like Joy Reid every week. We need to tackle this. Joy is doing it every day. We need to do every week.
Well,
Well-
starting Monday, Joy Reid's going to be talking about 2025. We're looking at maybe broadcasting it for a watch party, so we'll share online if that ends up happening. But no, I think these conversations, we actually need to have them more. We need to have longer
I think
conversations.
Danita, we got to debrief every conversation that she has, and every
Yeah.
time. she
Okay,
mentions
okay.
Texas-
Let's plan for every other week because y'all know y'all schedules
It
going
has
around
to-
every week.
No, it has to be every week. We have to
And
debrief.
she's talking. We can't get her on schedule.
But once you get me here,
Donya's ready to be a YouTuber and a Twitcher and all that kind of stuff to where we just
Not a Twitcher.
well, a Twitch streamer to where we just are in front of the
Now-
screen, breaking it down.
now, and I'm the diplomatic side because I don't pick
Twitcher,
either.
twerker,
I don't
all
pick
of it.
either side. So I'm really much in the
Okay.
middle because I can understand, like I said earlier,
Well-
why they got Project 2025. I can wholeheartedly understand it, but at the end of the day,
Okay, well, you know, we'll see what our next meeting. We'll keep you posted on next meeting.
Yeah.
It may be next week. It may be the week after.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't know. But
These next 102 days are going to be intense and active.
Yes.
So be ready for increased content from the Doc Bookshop.
that is true. I mean, we that is true. It's a lot.
And what is your recommended book for tonight, Donya?
There it is. we're gonna support Kamala. Let's get her book and let's see what
Let me
she's really
say,
about.
I haven't pushed this book just because she's the Democratic nominee. I've always pushed her book, and not because it's a fact, because it's somebody that utilized politics. She had a strategy, whether it's good or bad. She had a system and a strategy that got her into rooms. And anybody that's in politics or trying to be a politician, I advise them. I always say, read this book.
Yeah.
And if you're in her part of her organization, which is AKA, everybody should have this book and read this book and lullaby on this book. That's why I was able to go straight to the page that said words matter. The numbers matter. Right after she talks about words matter, she talks about the methodology of numbers matter. So this is, again, I can't say enough about just knowing this book, like you will read a Project 2025 is, and how she talked about her. She has so many organizations that back her. Let me just say this: she has some of the most powerful.
Danita, I don't know why you keep pushing her. Your time is up.
She has some of the most powerful women groups that back her. Not only just the AKAs, but I'm talking about Asian. I mean, this tells you what her aunt did to get her in certain office. So they line up their cultural values with a mission. So her family in India had a, I don't want to talk about the strategy because you're just gonna have to read it in the book. But they aligned that.
But buy the book from the Doc Bookshop today.
And let's discuss it. And then there's another book.
I'm sorry. Okay, so
we're gonna end stream.
In stream. We love you all.
Let me
definitely visit our website. You
have to say one more thing. There's another book about Kamala's Way. And the reason why I say Kamala's Way by Moran is because some things Kamala doesn't talk about, but Moran talks about, which is just as crucial.
Danita will still be there. You just get.
I know. Okay.
No, we are in
She's talking to
stream.
Danita at this point.
Everybody have. No, she was talking to everybody. Everybody have a wonderful night. We'll keep you posted on the next meeting. And thank you, Danita. You know we love you, girl. Thank you so much. You're part of the team now. We'll let you know. Okay. All right.
She's always been a part of the team.
Always. All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Push that button.